Imagine this. You're standing in a crowded room surrounded by voices, laughter, the hum of half-understood conversations. You say something you believe with your whole being, and the room tilts. Eyes flicker toward you, then away. Someone nods politely. Another person chuckles, as if you've told a joke you didn't mean to tell. Your words, carefully chosen, have landed like stones in water, ripples forming, then vanishing, leaving no trace behind. And yet, here's the strange part. You feel something stir in your chest, a quiet, almost perverse satisfaction. They don't get it. They never will. This feeling is familiar. It has lived inside you for years, maybe your whole life. It surfaces when your deepest thoughts are met with blank stares, when your pain is dismissed as drama, when your truth is labeled too intense. You've learned to wear misunderstanding like armor. If they can't see me, they can't hurt me. But beneath that armor, something else festers. A secret addiction, one you've never dared to name. What if being misunderstood isn't just a wound, but a drug? Think of the last time someone truly got you. Not the polite nods, not the surface-level agreements, but the moment when another human being looked into your eyes and said, "Yes, I see it too." How did it feel? Like oxygen flooding your lungs after years of suffocation. And yet, how quickly did you retreat back into the safety of being unseen? How often have you sabotaged understanding when it came too close? This is the great paradox. We ache to be known, yet we cling to the comfort of being unknown. We crave connection, yet we romanticize our isolation. We call it loneliness, but what if it's something darker? What if, on some unconscious level, we prefer the prison of being misunderstood? Consider the poet who writes in riddles, the artist who hides their true meaning behind layers of symbolism, the philosopher who speaks in paradoxes. Are they searching for understanding or ensuring it never arrives? Think of the way you phrased your own thoughts, the way you've held back, the way you've let people assume the worst of you. There's power in being an enigma. There's safety in being a ghost. But at what cost? Carl Jung once wrote, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." And yet, what if the real loneliness comes from choosing not to communicate them? What if the deepest isolation isn't imposed by the world, but by the self? Here's the unsettling question. What if you're not a victim of misunderstanding, but its accomplice? This is not an accusation. It's an invitation. To look at the moments you've let your words be twisted, your intentions be misread, your heart be overlooked, and ask, did I want it this way? Because if the answer is yes, even a little, then something profound shifts. This isn't about society's failure to listen. This is about your relationship with being unheard. There is a peculiar kind of power in being misunderstood, one that the deepest parts of the human psyche recognize instinctively. It is the power of the shadow, the unspoken, the thing that lingers just beyond the reach of another's comprehension. Why would anyone prefer to remain unseen? The answer lies in a psychological sleight of hand, one that trades true connection for the illusion of control. When you are misunderstood, you are, in a twisted way, safe. No one can reject the real you if the real you is never revealed. No one can disappoint you if you never give them the chance to truly know you. This is the tragic irony at the heart of the addiction. We fear being unseen, yet we fear being seen even more. The existential shield, Nietzsche, Sartre, and the fear of being known. Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote that every profound spirit needs a mask. He understood something essential about human nature, that we construct personas not just to deceive others, but to protect ourselves from the unbearable weight of absolute exposure. To be fully known is to be vulnerable to judgment, to the crushing realization that another person might look at your soul and find it ordinary, or worse, flawed in ways you cannot bear to acknowledge. Jean-Paul Sartre took this further. In Being and Nothingness, he argued that human beings are trapped in an endless cycle of bad faith, self-deception to avoid the terrifying freedom of authenticity. We would rather be misinterpreted than face the responsibility of defining ourselves clearly. Because if we are misunderstood, We can always whisper to ourselves, "They just don't get me." It's a comforting lie, one that preserves our sense of specialness while sparing us the work of true self-revelation. The martyr's delusion, how victimhood becomes an identity. But there is something even darker at play. For some, being misunderstood is not just a defense. It is a form of inverted pride. Think of the tortured artist, the brooding intellectual, the melancholic soul who wears their loneliness like a crown. There is a perverse prestige in being the one who sees too much, the one too complex for the world to grasp. This is the martyr's delusion. If no one understands me, it must mean I am deeper than them. Arthur Schopenhauer saw this clearly. He wrote of the will's resistance, the way human beings would rather suffer in self-imposed isolation than surrender their ego's need to feel exceptional. To be understood would mean stepping down from the pedestal of one's own imagined uniqueness. And for some, that is an unbearable loss. The neurological trap. Why your brain rewards misunderstanding. This is not just philosophical, it's biological. The brain is wired to seek patterns. And if you have spent years reinforcing the belief that no one will ever understand me, your neural pathways will cling to that narrative like a life raft. Every time someone fails to grasp you, it doesn't feel like a failure. It feels like confirmation. See? I was right all along. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter tied to reward and reinforcement, is released not just when we succeed, but when our predictions are proven correct, even if those predictions are painful. This is why people stay in toxic relationships, why they return to old habits, and yes, why they unconsciously push away true understanding. The brain would rather be right than happy. The cultural cult of misunderstood genius society has romanticized this condition. From Van Gogh's severed ear to Kafka's unpublished manuscripts, we worship the idea of the misunderstood visionary. We tell ourselves that brilliance must be lonely, that depth must be alienating. But this is a myth, one that keeps us trapped in a cycle of performative isolation. Aldous Huxley warned of this in Brave New World Revisited. The most dangerous dictators are not those who are hated, but those who are misunderstood, because misunderstanding can be weaponized. What he grasped is that when we refuse to clarify ourselves, we surrender the power to define our own narrative. We become characters in someone else's story, and then wonder why we feel like strangers in our own lives. The turning point. A question you can't unsee. So here is the question you must sit with, the one that will determine whether you remain addicted or begin to break free. Are you hiding in the shadows because the light is too frightening, or because you've grown to love the dark? The answer will dictate everything. The silent war inside you. There is a quiet violence in remaining misunderstood, not the dramatic kind that leaves scars, but the slow, corrosive erosion of the soul. Every time you swallow your truth, every time you let someone walk away with the wrong idea, every time you nod along when inside you're screaming, "That's not what I meant," you are amputating a piece of yourself. And the worst part? You don't even feel the bleeding, because this is how the addiction sustains itself, not through grand gestures, but through 1,000 tiny surrenders. The unspoken words pile up like unmarked graves. The unlived truths calcify into something resembling resignation. One day you wake up and realize you've spent years performing a role written by someone else's assumptions, the 3 lies that keep you trapped. 1. If they really cared, they'd figure me out. A seductive lie, one that shifts all responsibility onto others. The truth? No one is a mind reader. Expecting people to just know you is like handing them a locked box and then resenting them for not opening it. 2. Being understood would make me ordinary. This is the martyr's mantra, the belief that depth must be solitary. But consider, did Nietzsche's brilliance diminish when he found readers who grasped him? Did Jung's insights lose their power when he taught them? Connection does not dilute meaning, it multiplies it. 3. It's safer this way. The oldest lie of all. Yes, being seen risks rejection. But what is the cost of never being seen at all? A life spent in the audience of your own existence, always watching, never stepping into the light. The ripple effect, how your silence shapes the world. This is not just a personal tragedy, it's a cultural one. Every time you choose to stay misunderstood, you reinforce a world where relationships become minefields of guesswork and unspoken grudges. Art is created for the sake of being misunderstood rather than felt. Politics thrives on deliberate miscommunication, where no one says what they mean and everyone is angry at projections. Gabor Mate's work on addiction reveals a brutal truth. We don't get addicted to substances or behaviors. We get addicted to the escape they provide from suffering. Your addiction to being misunderstood is no different. It's an escape from the terrifying vulnerability of saying, "This is me. Do you see me?" Modern psychology confirms what the ancients knew intuitively, that unexpressed truths don't disappear. They migrate. They become the anxiety that tightens your chest when someone asks, "What's wrong?" and you say nothing. The unexplained fatigue that comes from performing a self that isn't yours. The rage that surfaces when someone else's casual comment hits a nerve you didn't even know was exposed. Bessel van der Kolk's research on trauma shows that the body remembers what the mind tries to forget. Every stifled word, every swallowed scream, they don't vanish. They take up residence in your muscles, your breath, your posture. You carry them. The fork in the road. You stand at a crossroads, continue the addiction, and watch as your relationships, your creativity, and your vitality slowly shrink to fit the cage of being misunderstood. Or break the spell. Risk the exposure. Speak so clearly that misunderstanding becomes impossible. The choice is yours. But know this, the world doesn't need more martyrs to loneliness. It needs people brave enough to say, "Here I am." The first step, admit you are addicted. You do not need to be locked in a cage to be imprisoned. The most insidious prisons are the ones we decorate with our own justifications. People are shallow. No one would get it. I'm just too complex. But here is the liberating truth. You are not a prisoner of the world's misunderstanding. You are a prisoner of your own fear of being seen. The moment you admit this, really admit it, something shifts. The victim narrative crumbles. You realize you have been complicit in your own erasure. This is not condemnation. This is power. Because if you built this cage, you can dismantle it. The radical act of speaking, plainly, we romanticize obscurity. We think depth requires complexity, that truth must be shrouded in metaphor. But consider, the most revolutionary ideas in history were not whispered in riddles. They were declared with terrifying clarity. Martin Luther King Jr. did not say, "I have a somewhat ambiguous dream." Nietzsche did not write, "Possibly God is somewhat deceased, depending on interpretation." They spoke plainly, and the world caught fire. Your rebellion begins here. 1. Say what you mean, not the polished version, not the version designed to be misunderstood, the raw, unfiltered truth. 2. Stop using complexity as a shield. Depth is not measured by how few people understand you, but by how deeply you resonate with those who do. 3. Repeat until it terrifies you. If your words don't scare you sometimes, you're still hiding. The shadow work of being understood. Carl Jung warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Your addiction to being misunderstood is unconscious self-sabotage. To break it, you must drag it into the light. Ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen if I'm truly understood? Who would I have to stop being if I stopped performing misunderstood? What old wound am I protecting by keeping myself in the shadows? This is not introspection. This is excavation. The vulnerability paradox. We avoid vulnerability because we think it will destroy us. But the opposite is true. It is the lack of vulnerability that slowly kills. Brené Brown's research on shame reveals a counterintuitive truth. Vulnerability is the birthplace of love, belonging, and joy. When you refuse to be seen, you don't avoid pain. You just trade the acute pain of rejection for the chronic pain of isolation. Try this experiment. 1. For one day, speak with absolute clarity, no hints, no subtext. 2. Watch who leans in and who recoils. 3. Repeat with the ones who leaned in. You'll discover something astonishing. The right people were waiting for you all along. The art of strategic misunderstanding. Here's the twist. Not everyone deserves to understand you. Nietzsche wrote, "You must be ready to burn yourself in your own flame. How could you rise anew if you have not first become ashes?" Some will misunderstand you not because you're unclear, but because their world cannot accommodate your truth. Let them. Your freedom lies in distinguishing between those who can't understand you yet, speak clearer. Those who refuse to understand you, walk away. This is discernment, not defeat. The final barrier, your own resistance. The hardest part? You will resist your own liberation. You'll miss the drama of being misunderstood. You'll panic when someone finally sees you. You'll be tempted to retreat into familiar obscurity. When this happens, remember, clarity is love. Love for yourself, love for the truth. Love for those rare souls who are waiting to recognize you. The rebellion is not a one-time act. It's a daily practice of choosing visibility over safety, connection over control. The illusion collapses. Here is the secret you've been running from. You were never misunderstood. You were hiding. All those years of whispering, "No one gets me," they were never about the world's inability to listen. They were about your terror of stepping into the light and saying, "This is who I am." The great irony? In fearing misinterpretation, you became the very thing you dreaded, a distorted version of yourself. The existential choice. Jean-Paul Sartre was right. We are our choices. But he missed the corollary. We are also our refusals to choose. Every time you allowed yourself to be misunderstood, you were refusing the most fundamental human responsibility, to exist unmistakably. This is the weight of consciousness, not just to be, but to declare yourself. To stand in the marketplace of souls and say, "Here I am, love me or leave me, but do not mistake me." The alchemy of being seen. There is a moment, one you may not remember, when you first learned that being seen was dangerous. Perhaps it was a parent who mocked your childhood passion, a lover who weaponized your vulnerability, a society that rewarded conformity over truth. That moment became a story. The story became a strategy. The strategy became a prison. But stories can be rewritten. Consider. What if being misunderstood wasn't your cross to bear, but your excuse to remain small? What if the people who never understood you were simply mirroring your own self-abandonment? What if clarity, not mystery, is the real mark of depth? The final revelation. The ultimate truth is this: you don't crave understanding. You crave the courage to be understood. There's a difference. The first keeps you waiting for rescue. The second demands you become your own liberator. This is why the addiction persists, because as long as you're waiting for the world to figure you out, you never have to risk the terrifying work of figuring yourself out. The invitation. The path forward isn't complicated, it's just unbearably simple. 1. Write the letter you're afraid to send. 2. Have the conversation you've been avoiding. 3. Create the art that feels too revealing. 4. Love in a way that leaves no room for ambiguity. Do this not once, but daily, until your life becomes an unmistakable declaration rather than a series of careful evasions. The last lie to release. You've believed that being fully seen would mean losing yourself. The shocking truth? You've only ever been lost when you were hiding. Epilogue, the man who stopped whispering. Imagine this. Years from now, someone sits where you sit now, aching to be understood, yet addicted to obscurity. They encounter something you left behind, a sentence, a painting, a life lived unmistakably. And for the first time they think, if they could do it, maybe I can too. This is how chains break, not with a roar, but with one clear voice refusing to whisper anymore. Let yours be that voice.